Good morning. I am Andrew Whaley. Our scripture today comes from the book of Numbers, chapter 20, verses 2 through 13. Now there was no water for the congregation, so they gathered together against Moses and against Aaron. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Would that we had died when our kindred died before the Lord. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness for us and our livestock to die here? Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? It is no place for grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." Then Moses and Aaron went away from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting. They fell on their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aaron, and command the rock before their eyes to yield its water. Thus you shall bring water out of the rock for them. Thus you shall provide drink for the congregation and their livestock." So Moses took the staff from before the Lord as he commanded him. Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, "Listen, you rebels, shall we bring water out of this rock?" Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust in me to show my holiness before the eyes of the Israelites, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. These are the waters of Meribah, where the people of Israel quarreled with the Lord, and by which he showed his holiness." "Dad, I'm hungry," you hear 10 minutes into the drive. "My DVD isn't working. I want to watch something else. Why didn't you charge the iPad? I need to go potty. I've dropped my crayons on the floor. Oh no, my goldfish." Family road trips. Anybody who's ever been on them knows these sayings and more, and how tiring they can become as you deal with complaints and problems and disasters, all while trying to reach a destination by a certain time. So you know, to a degree, how Moses and Aaron are feeling in our story today. They have grown exhausted with the complaints of the Israelites. They've been journeying with them for almost 40 years at this point, and things don't seem to be getting any better. And so in this moment, you hear the complaints. They're like the ones before. "Why'd you guide us out here to die? This land isn't good. There's nothing to drink." Moses and Aaron go before God, and they assume God's going to smite the people, convict them, accuse them of their disobedience and their rebelliousness. But being thirsty is kind of a legitimate need. So you heard, God doesn't respond with rebuke or disdain. God says, sure, they need water to drink. There's no anger. There's no frustration. But you hear how Moses responds. He responds with anger. Moses calls the people rebels. He says it sarcastically and with anger. "You want us to bring water from this rock?" And he hits the rock, and water gushes forth. And now God is unhappy with Moses. Moses and Aaron are not going to be allowed to enter the promised land after all their work of leadership. So much has been said about why that happens from this story. But today I'm going to go with Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. And he talks about this as having to do with generations of leadership. 40 years before, Moses and Aaron had been in a similar situation. And that time, God told Moses to strike the rock with his staff. And so that's what he did, and the water gushed forth. Moses, 40 years in, is now told to speak to the rock, but he does what he did before, and he strikes it. He can't see that times have changed. He, Moses, was raised up to be the leader that would guide slaves to freedom. He can't see before him that while the complaints are the same, the people on the road trip are different. These are children of wilderness, not of slavery. They're not people who need dramatic signs of striking a rock. They need words. They need to be told, shown who their God is. It's not the time for striking, it's the time for speaking. And so someone else will have to be the one who leads the people into the promised land. Moses has grown worn down, and he's weary from all these years. He's put his reaction on autopilot when he begins to hear the complaints of the people and he's not really listening to what their concerns are anymore. He's already lost his sister Miriam, who helped him in his leadership. Most of the people he led out of slavery have died. Now he hears that he and Aaron will die in the wilderness as well. They have fulfilled their role, and this incident has illumined that it's time. It's time for a new leader. One of the hardest lessons for us to learn is that it's time for a new leader. When have the generations shifted, the priorities changed, the technologies moved along? What does it take for us to have the awareness to see that it's time for us to step away and for a new leader to step in? You see, here it sounds like Moses is punished, but more, Moses is forced to acknowledge that he can't be the perfect leader forever. Moses exposes to all of us here at the Rock that there are times when it's time to move on. There's a time limit to our leadership. And the gift is handing over that leadership for someone else to carry on past what we would be able to do into the future. And so may we be humble enough to have our ears to hear when we have struck the rocks that we should have spoken to. And in those moments of exposure, may we have the humility to say, I have served faithfully, but it's time for something new.